Hello, welcome to Andy Tales. After watching the video, make sure there's no one else in the room. Don't forget to write your city and the time in the comments.
The mirror in the attic. I've always been fascinated by old houses, their creaky floors and hidden corners whispering tales of lives long past, a fascination that started when I was a child exploring the abandoned farmhouse next to my grandparents' property. I'd spend hours there imagining the families who once filled its rooms, their voices echoing in the wind through broken windows. That love carried into adulthood, driving me to buy fixer-uppers, dilapidated homes I could restore, piece by piece, as if stitching together their forgotten histories. Last summer, I moved into my latest project, a crumbling Victorian on the edge of town, its sagging porch and peeling wallpaper a challenge I couldn't resist. The drafty windows let in the damp air, the walls creaked with every gust, but it was the attic that drew me in most, a locked mystery waiting to be uncovered. The attic door was sealed tight when I arrived, its wood warped, the lock rusted as if someone had wanted to keep something inside. The previous owner, an elderly woman who'd left in a hurry, had left no key, only a vague warning scribbled on a note I found in the kitchen: "Don't go up there." I dismissed it as superstition, spending a week tearing through drawers and closets until I found the key buried in a box of old photographs, its metal corroded but fitting the lock with a satisfying click. The door groaned as I pushed it open, the hinges protesting, revealing a space thick with dust motes dancing in the faint light, the air heavy with the smell of mildew, damp wood, and something faintly metallic, like blood long dried. Cobwebs clung to the rafters, broken furniture loomed in the shadows, and I felt a prickle at the back of my neck, a whisper of unease I couldn't shake. Among the clutter, I found a mirror, tall, its frame cracked and splintered, the wood carved with faded vines that seemed to writhe under my gaze, its glass clouded with age, reflecting the dim beam of my flashlight in a way that made my reflection look distorted, almost alive. I dragged it downstairs, my muscles straining against its weight, planning to clean it and sell it at a local antique shop, its potential value a small victory in my renovation budget. I set it in my bedroom, the only room I'd managed to make livable, and that first night, as I unpacked by its side, I noticed something odd. My reflection didn't move when I did. It stood still, its eyes locked on mine, its lips curling into a slow, unnatural smile that I didn't mimic, a grin that stretched too wide, revealing teeth that weren't mine. I blinked, and it was gone, my own face staring back, but the air grew colder, a whisper creeping in, "Look again, look again." Look again, soft and rasping, like a voice struggling through cracked lips, emanating from the glass. I told myself it was exhaustion, the long days of sanding floors and patching walls playing tricks on my mind, but the next night I woke to the sound of tapping, a rhythmic scrape like fingernails dragging across glass, sharp and insistent. I sat up, my heart pounding, and saw my reflection again, its head tilted at an impossible angle, its glowing eyes, white and unblinking, watching me from the mirror, their light casting an eerie sheen across the room. The whisper grew louder, "Look again," and I felt a cold breath on my neck, sharp and icy despite the closed window, the sensation sinking into my bones. I stumbled out of bed, covering the mirror with a sheet, my hands trembling, but the tapping continued, the whisper seeping through the fabric, "Look again," a command I couldn't ignore. In a panic, I tore the sheet off, desperate to silence it, the room plunging into darkness as the bulb flickered. The reflection moved first, stepping forward as if the glass were liquid, its hand pressing against the surface, leaving a glowing smear that pulsed like a heartbeat, green and sickly, spreading across the mirror like a stain. I stumbled back, knocking over a lamp, the crash echoing through the house, the sound swallowed by the sudden silence that followed. The figure emerged, tall and thin, its body a blur of shadow, its glowing eyes fixed on me, its limbs elongating as it pressed against the frame, the wood creaking under its weight. The whisper turned into a chant, "Look again, look again, look again," and I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the attic, the floorboards creaking above me, each step a thud that vibrated through the walls. The air grew thick, the metallic smell intensifying, and I saw shadows moving under the bedroom door, tall and thin, their outlines flickering like candle flames. I ran, my bare feet slipping on the hardwood, the chant following, look again, as I fumbled with the front door, the lock jamming before I forced it open, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. I stumbled outside, the Victorian looming behind me, its windows dark except for a faint green glow from the attic, the chant echoing, look again, fading as I reached the street, my breath ragged, my skin crawling with the sense of being watched. I stayed in a cheap motel that night, the fluorescent lights buzzing, the sheets thin, but I couldn't sleep, the whisper haunting me, look again, and I saw my reflection in the bathroom mirror, its eyes glowing, its smile widening. The next day, I returned with a hammer and nails, boarding up the attic door, the wood splintering under my blows, my hands shaking as I worked. I sold the house to a real estate agent, taking a loss just to be rid of it, and moved to a small apartment downtown, hoping to leave the nightmare behind. But the mirror reappeared, leaning against the wall of my new bedroom, its glass clear now, my reflection smiling, its eyes glowing with that same white light. I threw it out, watched the garbage truck crush it, the metal grinding loud in the morning air, but it returned the next morning, propped against my door, the chant louder, look again, and I felt its presence in every reflective surface, windows, spoons, the screen of my laptop watching me, its glowing eyes peering from the edges of my vision. I tried burning it, the flames licking the frame before dying out, leaving the mirror intact, the glass warm to the touch, the chant seeping into my ears, look again, as if mocking my efforts. I keep it locked in a metal box now, buried in a closet under a pile of blankets, but I still hear that voice, look again, faint and distant, on quiet nights when the wind howls and I feel those glowing eyes watching me from the corners of the room. Their gaze a weight I can't escape. I sleep with the lights on, the curtains drawn tight, every creak of the floorboards sending my heart racing, and I never look into mirrors anymore, terrified that one day the box will open itself and the figure will step out, its chant pulling me back into the glass. The clock that counted down. I've always been a collector of odd things, the kind of person who sees beauty in objects others overlook. Rusted keys, cracked porcelain figurines, anything with a story etched into its imperfections. It started as a child, rummaging through my parents' attic, pulling treasures from dust-covered boxes, each item a portal to a past I could only imagine. As an adult, I turned that passion into a ritual, spending weekends at estate sales and antique shops, my fingers tracing the edges of forgotten relics, my mind spinning tales of their origins. Last spring, I attended an estate sale at a sprawling mansion on the edge of town, a place rumored to have been abandoned for decades after its owner, a reclusive clockmaker, vanished under mysterious circumstances. The house loomed like a shadow against the overcast sky, its windows boarded, its stone walls streaked with ivy, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Inside, the mansion was a labyrinth of dark hallways and creaking staircases, the air thick with the smell of mildew, old wood, and something sharper, like burnt metal. The rooms were crowded with bidders, their voices a low hum, but I felt a pull toward the back of the house, where a narrow staircase led to a locked door, its wood warped, a rusted padlock hanging loosely, as if inviting me to break it open. I slipped away from the crowd, my heart pounding, and pried the lock with a letter opener I'd found on a nearby table, the metal snapping with a dull crack that echoed in the silence. The door opened to a small room, its walls lined with clocks of every shape and size. Grandfather clocks with pendulums frozen mid-swing, pocket watches dangling from chains, their faces cracked, their hands bent. But one clock caught my eye, a mantelpiece model on a dusty table, its casing a tarnished brass, its face a pale ivory, the numbers etched in a script that seemed to shimmer, as if written in liquid shadow. The clock's hands were stuck at 11:58, the second hand trembling slightly, as if straining to move, and I felt a chill as I touched it, the brass colder than the room's damp air, the metal buzzing faintly under my fingers, like a heartbeat. There was no price tag, but a yellowed note tucked beneath it read, "Do not wind. It counts for you." I ignored the warning, drawn to the clock's eerie beauty, and slipped it into my bag, the weight of it heavy against my hip as I left the sale, the mansion's shadow stretching long across the lawn, the air growing colder as I drove away, a whisper of unease settling in my chest. I set the clock on my mantle that evening, my small house quiet save for the hum of the radiator, the air thick with the scent of rain seeping through the cracked window. I examined it under the glow of a lamp, the brass reflecting the light in a way that made the numbers seem to shift, their shapes curling like tendrils, the hands still frozen at 11:58. I couldn't resist. I found the winding key in a hidden compartment on the base, its metal icy to the touch, and turned it, the mechanism clicking to life with a sound that was too loud, too deliberate, a ticking that reverberated through the room, each second a hammer blow to my nerves. The second hand moved, inching toward 11:59, and I heard a whisper. Tick for you, tick for you, tick for you, soft and guttural, coming from the clock, the words slithering into my ears like a physical touch. I froze, my hand still on the key, the air growing colder, the burnt metal smell intensifying, mixed with something rancid, like rotting flesh, the radiator's hum fading under the ticking, which grew louder, more insistent, each tick a pulse that matched my heartbeat. I looked at the clock's face, and the numbers were changing, the script morphing into words, "You're mine," the letters glowing faintly, a sickly green that pulsed like a heartbeat, the hands creeping closer to midnight. The whisper turned into a chant, "Tick for you," and I felt a cold breath on my neck, sharp and icy. Despite the closed window, the sensation sinking into my bones, my reflection in the clock's glass showing something behind me. A figure, tall and thin, its outline blurred, its eyes two glowing points, white and unblinking, staring at me with a malice that turned my blood to ice. I yanked my hand away, the key falling to the floor with a clatter, but the ticking continued, the chant louder, "Tick for you," and I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the hallway, the floorboards creaking with each step. The air thick with the rancid smell, the temperature dropping until my breath fogged in the dim light. I grabbed the clock, my hands trembling, and threw it into the fireplace, the brass denting against the stone, the glass shattering, but the ticking persisted, "Tick for you," echoing from the shards, from the walls, from the air itself. And I saw the figure in the fireplace's reflection, its claw-like hands reaching out, leaving smears that pulsed green, its glowing eyes fixed on me, its mouth opening, a void of jagged shapes dripping with black ichor. I ran to the kitchen, grabbing a hammer from a drawer, my hands shaking as I smashed the clock, the pieces scattering across the floor, the ticking dying with a final, guttural scream, but the chant persisted, "Tick for you," and I felt the figure's presence behind me. Its cold breath on my neck, its glowing fingers brushing my shoulder, leaving a chill that burned. I swept the pieces into a bag, drove to a nearby river, and threw them in, the water swallowing them with a splash, the chant fading, "Tick for you," carried away by the current. But the next morning, the clock was back on my mantle, the brass polished, the glass whole, the hands at 11:59, the second hand trembling, the numbers glowing brighter, "You're mine," the chant louder, "Tick for you," and I heard footsteps again. Closer now, the figure's glowing eyes watching from every reflection, the windows, the mirror in the bathroom, the glass of my phone screen, its presence a weight I can't escape. I moved out that week, renting a new place in the city, a sterile apartment with no history, but the clock followed, appearing on the counter, its chant louder, "Tick for you," the hands creeping closer to midnight, the numbers morphing into new words, no escape. The green light pulsing like a heartbeat. I went back to the mansion, desperate for answers, but the house was gone, replaced by an empty field, the ground uneven, littered with broken glass and weeds, the air heavy with the smell of decay. I asked a local, an old man walking his dog, if he knew about the mansion, but he shook his head, saying, "Ain't been nothing there but a field since the clockmaker vanished in '52. They say he made a clock that counted down lives, trapping souls in its ticks. You sure you got the right place?" I nodded, my throat tight, and walked away, the clock waiting for me at home, its chant a constant drone, "Tick for you," in my ears. I found a single thread online, buried in an obscure forum, about a clock that appeared at estate sales, its hands counting down to midnight, its ticks alive, whispering to those who wound it, its watchers, tall, thin shadows with glowing eyes, never leaving those who heard too much, their lives haunted by the clock's rhythm. I don't collect antiques anymore, don't even visit garage sales or flea markets, too afraid of what I might find hidden among the relics. I keep the clock locked in a safe, buried in a storage unit across town, but I hear the chant tick for you, faint and distant, on quiet nights when the air feels thick, and I see those glowing eyes in every shadow, every reflection, watching me. Their presence a weight I can't escape. I sleep with the lights on, the windows covered, every creak of the building sending my heart racing, and I never touch clocks anymore, terrified that one day the hands will reach midnight and the figure will step out, its chant pulling me into the darkness. The painting that changed. I've always been drawn to thrift stores, a habit I picked up in my early 20s when I was a broke art student, scouring dusty shelves for hidden treasures. Old books with handwritten notes in the margins, chipped teacups with faded floral patterns, anything that carried a story from another life. There's something thrilling about finding a piece of the past, something discarded but still alive with memory, and I'd spend hours on weekends wandering through cluttered aisles, my fingers trailing over worn surfaces, imagining the hands that once held them. Now, in my late 30s, with a stable job as a graphic designer and a small house on the outskirts of a quiet town, I still couldn't resist the pull of a good thrift shop, the promise of uncovering something extraordinary amid the mundane. Last winter, I found myself at a new store on the edge of town, a squat brick building with a flickering neon sign that read Second Chances. The air inside thick with the smell of mothballs, old leather, and a faint tang of mildew that clung to the back of my throat. The shop was a labyrinth of narrow aisles, shelves groaning under the weight of forgotten things. Tarnished silverware, cracked porcelain dolls, stacks of vinyl records warped by time. I wandered deeper, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting harsh shadows that danced across the walls, my footsteps muffled by the threadbare carpet, the silence broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling. I was about to leave, my hands empty, when I spotted it. A painting tucked behind a pile of faded quilts, its frame crooked, the canvas sagging slightly, as if it had been waiting for someone to claim it. The painting was small, no larger than a textbook, its frame a chipped mahogany, the wood scratched but intricately carved with what looked like tiny faces, their expressions frozen in silent screams, their eyes hollowed out by the grain. The canvas depicted a simple scene, a figure standing in a field under a stormy sky, the grass a sickly yellow, the clouds heavy with the threat of rain, their edges tinged with a greenish hue that felt unnatural. The figure was faceless, its body a dark silhouette, its posture rigid, as if caught mid-step, its arms hanging at its sides, the hands blurred, like they'd been painted over in haste. Something about it sent a shiver down my spine, but I couldn't look away, the brushstrokes rough yet deliberate, the colors muted but alive with an energy I couldn't place. The price tag read $5, a steal for something so hauntingly beautiful, and I bought it without a second thought, ignoring the cashier's hesitant glance as she wrapped it in brown paper, her fingers lingering on the frame a moment too long. I brought it home that evening, the sky outside a mirror of the painting's storm, the air heavy with the scent of rain as I unwrapped it in my living room, the paper crinkling under my hands, the faint mildew smell stronger now, mixed with something metallic, like rust or dried blood. I hung it on the wall above my couch, the frame creaking as I adjusted it, the faceless figure staring down at me, its silhouette stark against the peeling wallpaper of my fixer-upper home. That night, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine, sketching ideas for a freelance project, the painting looming in my peripheral vision, its presence a quiet weight I couldn't ignore. I glanced at it, my pencil pausing mid-stroke, and noticed something strange. The figure had moved. It was closer to the edge of the canvas now, its head tilted slightly, as if looking at me, its faceless void darker, more defined, a shadow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I rubbed my eyes, blaming the late hour and the wine. But when I looked again, the figure was closer still, its blurred hands clearer now, long and claw-like, tipped with points that glowed faintly, a sickly green that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air grew colder, the mildew smell sharpening into something rancid, and I heard a whisper, "See me, see me, see me," soft and guttural, coming from the painting, the words slithering into my ears like a physical touch. I stood, my glass slipping from my hand, shattering on the hardwood floor, the sound swallowed by the silence that followed, the whisper growing louder, "See me," and I felt a cold breath on my neck, sharp and icy despite the closed windows, the sensation sinking into my bones. I tore the painting from the wall, my hands trembling, the frame heavier than I remembered, and carried it to the garage, the air there damp and heavy, smelling of oil and dust. I locked it in a metal cabinet, the door slamming shut with a clang that echoed in the stillness, but as I turned to leave, I heard the whisper again, "See me," faint but persistent, seeping through the metal, through the walls, through the air itself. I ran back inside, locking the door behind me, my heart pounding, the house suddenly feeling too small, the shadows too deep, the creak of the floorboards too loud. I turned on every light, the bulbs buzzing like a swarm of insects, but the whisper followed, "See me," and I saw the figure in every reflective surface, the glass of the windows, the screen of my laptop, its glowing eyes watching me, unblinking, its claw-like hands reaching out, leaving smears that pulsed with that same green light. The next morning, I woke to find the painting back on the wall, the frame crooked, the figure closer still, its faceless void now a maw of jagged shapes, dripping with a black ichor that seemed to seep into the canvas, staining the field with shadows that writhed like living things. The whisper turned into a chant, "See me, see me, see me," and I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the hallway, the floorboards creaking with each step, the air thick with the rancid smell, the temperature dropping until my breath fogged in the dim light. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, my hands shaking, and slashed the canvas, the blade tearing through the figure, black ichor oozing from the cut, the whisper screaming, "See me," a sound that clawed at my skull, the figure's glowing eyes appearing in the tear, staring at me with a malice that turned my blood to ice. I burned it in the backyard, the flames roaring as the canvas curled, the frame splintering, the ichor hissing as it dripped into the fire, the smoke thick and black, carrying the chant, "See me," into the sky. But the next day, the painting was back, hanging in my bedroom, the figure whole again, standing at the edge of the canvas, its claws pressed against the surface, the green light pulsing brighter, the field now a sea of shadows, their shapes tall and thin, their eyes glowing, watching me. I moved out that week, renting a new place in the city, a sterile apartment with no history, but the painting followed, appearing on the wall, its chant louder, "See me," and I see it in every reflection, the mirror in the bathroom, the glass of my coffee table. Its glowing eyes peering from the edges, its presence a weight I can't escape. I went back to the thrift store, desperate for answers, but the building was gone, replaced by an empty lot, the ground uneven, littered with broken glass and weeds, the air heavy with the smell of decay. I asked a passerby, a woman walking her dog, if she knew about the store, but she shook her head, saying, "Ain't been nothing there but an empty lot for years, sir. You sure you got the right place?" I nodded, my throat tight, and walked away, the painting waiting for me at home, its chant a constant drone, "See me," in my ears. I found a single thread online, buried in an obscure forum, about a painting that appeared in thrift stores, its figure alive, its watchers tall, thin shadows with glowing eyes, never leaving those who saw too much, their lives haunted by the canvas's gaze. I don't go to thrift stores anymore, don't even browse antique shops or flea markets, too afraid of what I might find hidden among the shelves. I keep the painting locked in a safe, buried in a storage unit across town, but I hear the chant, "See me," faint and distant, on quiet nights when the air feels thick, and I see those glowing eyes in every shadow, every reflection, watching me. Their presence a weight I can't escape. I sleep with the lights on, the windows covered, every creak of the building sending my heart racing. And I never look at art anymore, terrified that one day, the safe will open itself, and the figure will step out, its chant pulling me into the shadows. The Reddit thread that answered back, I've been a lurker on Reddit for years, scrolling through subreddits late at night when sleep eludes me, drawn to the strange stories people share, ghost sightings, urban legends, personal confessions that blur the line between reality and nightmare. It's a habit I picked up in college, a way to unwind after studying, and it stuck with me into my mid-30s, a quiet escape from my desk job and the monotony of apartment life. Last spring, around 1 a.m. on a restless night, I stumbled across a new subreddit I hadn't seen before, r/the unseen call, its description vague, for those who hear what others cannot. The name piqued my curiosity, so I clicked in, the glow of my laptop screen casting shadows across my darkened living room. The subreddit was small, with only a handful of posts, most recent, their titles cryptic, the voice in the static, it knows my name, don't reply. I scrolled to the top post, dated just hours ago, titled, A Thread That Listens. The original poster, under the username SilentEcho77, claimed they'd found a thread in a dead subreddit that responded to their comments with uncanny accuracy, predicting their actions before they even typed them. The post included a link to the thread, archived but still active, with a warning, don't engage. It sees you. I hesitated, the room feeling colder, the hum of my laptop fan suddenly louder, but my curiosity won out and I clicked the link. The thread loaded slowly, the screen glitching for a moment, the text a jumble of black and green pixels before settling into a single post. Tell me your fear. The comments below were sparse, mostly from SilentEcho77, their replies growing more frantic. I didn't type that. It knows I'm afraid of heights. Stop watching me. Followed by responses from an account named Void Listener, each one eerily specific, like, you'll fall from the roof tonight, or I see you pacing now. My pulse quickened, the air in the room thickening, and I noticed my reflection in the screen, not just my face, but a shadow behind me, tall and thin, its outline blurred, its eyes two glowing points, white and unblinking, staring over my shoulder. I whipped around, my breath hitching, but the living room was empty, the furniture shrouded in darkness, the only sound the faint tick of the clock on the wall. I turned back to the laptop and the thread had updated, a new comment from Void Listener. You looked? I see you too. The words glowed faintly, the green pulsing like a heartbeat, and I felt a cold breath on my neck, sharp and icy despite the stillness. My hands trembled as I typed a reply, who are you? My finger hovering over the enter key, a part of me screaming to stop, but I pressed it, the screen flashing black for a split second before Void Listener responded, I am what you fear. You'll hear me soon. The room grew colder, the hum of the fan turning into a low chant, listen, 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 coming from the laptop, the speakers crackling with static that formed words, slithering into my ears. I slammed the lid shut, my heart pounding, but the chant continued, muffled but persistent, like it was inside the walls. I unplugged the laptop, tossed it into a drawer, and sat on the couch, my knees drawn up, the clock ticking louder, each second stretching into eternity. Then I heard it, a whisper, clear and close, listen, 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 from the kitchen, followed by the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, crossing the tile floor toward me. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and dialed a friend, but the call dropped, the screen freezing on 1:03 a.m., the same time the thread had started. The footsteps stopped, and I saw a shadow under the kitchen door, tall and thin, its edges flickering, the glowing eyes peering through the gap. I bolted, grabbing my keys and running outside, the cold night air hitting me as I stumbled to my car, the chant following, listen, 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 echoing in my head. I drove to a 24-hour diner, the fluorescent lights and chatter grounding me, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, my reflection in the window showing that shadow again, closer now. The next day, I checked Reddit, my fingers unsteady, and the unseen call was gone, the subreddit erased, its URL leading to a 404 error. I searched for SilentEcho77, but their account was deleted, their posts vanished as if they'd never existed. I found a single thread on r/nosleep, years old, about a subreddit that appeared and disappeared, its threads alive, responding with predictions that came true, its watchers, tall figures with glowing eyes, haunting those who engaged. The last post warned it never stops listening. I don't use Reddit anymore, don't even keep my laptop in the house, trading it for a new one, but I hear the chant, listen, 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 faint and insistent on quiet nights when the air feels thick. I see those glowing eyes in reflections, my phone screen, a store window watching me, their presence a weight I can't escape. I sleep with the lights on, the doors locked, and I never comment online, but I'm terrified that one night I'll hear that whisper again, and this time it won't let me run.